You all better get ready for a crazy summer because big changes seem all but certain in the NBA world. We're about to see quite a few teams push all of their chips into the pot and go all in on the quest for a championship, which means a lot of the best players in the world could be traded. That's exactly what Bleacher Report addressed in one of their most recent articles, where they proposed 4 blockbuster trade ideas featuring teams that are more than likely going to get aggressive on the trade market this summer, and as always, I'll be going through each one, analyzing whether or not the trades make sense, why or why not the teams involved would want to do it, and who would benefit the most from them. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first proposal from the article is between the Philadelphia 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets, and in it the 76ers receive Mikal Bridges and Dorian Finney-Smith in exchange for 3 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks. The 76ers' plan from the very beginning of the season was to preserve as much cap space and trade assets as possible to go all in this summer, so it doesn't surprise me at all to see the first trade including them to take a big swing. Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey are their pillars, but after that they can fill out the rest of their roster in a bunch of different ways. But in terms of what they need, Mikal Bridges checks pretty much every box. Bridges is at his best as a third option on a team who can take advantage of mismatches as a result of the stars around him garnering a lot of attention, because he himself is still a pretty crafty shooter both off the dribble and off the catch, and is one of the best perimeter defenders in the league as well. Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey are going to be the focal points of the offense moving forward regardless, so their perfect offseason would be to get a high-end third option that actually plays like a third option, then filling the rest of the roster out with role players that actually embrace their roles instead of trying to do too much. Mikal Bridges is, in my opinion, the perfect fit for them, and if they pull this off, it will be a full circle moment for them too, to right their prior wrong when they originally drafted Mikal Bridges only to immediately trade him away on that draft night. The hang up with this deal though comes from Brooklyn's point of view. Since Bridges has gotten to Brooklyn, the Nets have received quite a few trade offers for Bridges that have all been turned down, and according to reports, several of them had similar framework to this offer. 3 first-round picks have apparently been offered already for Bridges, and the Nets said no. However, this all happened before Bridges' production took a bit of a dip this season. When Mikal Bridges first got to Brooklyn, he briefly looked like an all-star caliber scoring talent, but he came back down to earth in a big way this year, proving that the burden of being a number 1 option on a team is too much for him to handle, and as a result, his value probably took a slight hit with it. The Nets are in desperate need of recouping the draft picks that they gave away in all of their prior failed blockbuster trades, and it's going to be a lot harder to turn down 3 first-round picks with all of this new context, so if the Nets do come around to it, then this is a home run for the 76ers. The next proposal from the article is between the Golden State Warriors and the Atlanta Hawks, and in it, the Warriors receive DeJounte Murray in exchange for Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, Gary Payton, and a first-round pick. Right off the bat, I have to say I hate almost everything about this deal. It seems to be based on outdated information, and maybe I could see this being a reasonable proposal if the year was 2022, but in 2024, this is absurdly lopsided in favor of Atlanta, and making desperate deals like this is part of the reason why the Warriors are coming off of a season where they missed the playoffs entirely. DeJounte Murray is still a good player, I'm not saying otherwise, but the idea of him at this point far exceeds the reality of what he is as a player, and there's a reason why his time in Atlanta has been nothing short of a disappointment. A proposal like this also comes off as highly disrespectful to the development of Jonathan Kuminga this year, and what I'm about to say may sound like a hot take, but I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if Kuminga was a better player than Murray within the next few seasons at the rate that he is developing across the board. So having to give Kuminga and his blossoming two-way play-up along with 2 other players and a first-round pick is an insane overpay for a player in Murray that isn't very effective off the ball and, in my opinion, would clash with the way that the Warriors like to play the game. If the Warriors actually wanted to make an all-in move featuring a package similar to this, they could shoot a lot higher than DeJounte Murray. The next proposal from the article is between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Utah Jazz, and in it the Cavaliers receive Lauri Markkanen in exchange for Evan Mobley, Isaac Okoro, and a first-round pick. This one's tough to digest at first, especially for Cavaliers fans, but I do have to say I see where the inspiration for something like this comes from, even if it may not be perfect. Evan Mobley is without question one of the best defensive talents in the game today, already at 22 years old, and he's a huge part of the Cavaliers being a top-ranked defense in the last 2 seasons. The Cavaliers have an impending problem on their hands though, and addressing it may force them to have some difficult conversations. It's been one of the worst-kept secrets in the league that Donovan Mitchell is not in love with the idea of signing a long-term contract extension with Cleveland, but the Cavaliers traded for him with the purpose of him being at the core of what they do moving forward. Right now, the Cavaliers are a strong yet flawed group who rely very heavily on Mitchell carrying the offense because Darius Garland has been pretty inconsistent alongside him in the backcourt, and the team's front court lacks the ability to create offense for themselves. Lauri Markkanen is easily a better fit for what the Cavaliers need, as an all-star scoring 7-footer that shoots 40% from 3 and has averaged 24 points per game in his time in Utah. The ironic part of all of this is that Markkanen was actually one of the players that the Cavaliers originally traded away in order to bring Donovan Mitchell in, and now they need him back to try to convince Mitchell to stay, and honestly, I just don't think it's all worth it. On paper, it's way too much for the Cavaliers to give up for him, and they would be foolish to abandon Mobley's potential this early in his career to try to appease a player that doesn't even want to be there in the first place. And finally, the last proposal from the article is between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Los Angeles Clippers, where the Lakers receive Paul George and PJ Tucker in exchange for Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt, D'Angelo Russell, and a first-round pick. One could make the argument that both of these teams fall into the category of desperate team ready to risk it all, so I guess I see why they decided to construct a potential deal between the two teams down the road from each other, especially with the Clippers opening up their brand new home stadium next season, but again, I struggle to see Paul George being worth the Lakers ridding themselves of any bit of depth for his services at this point in his career. Paul George is more than likely going to be a free agent this summer, so he'll have the ability to gauge interest on the open market, and if he does ultimately decide that he wants to stay home in LA where he's from, then he'll more than likely just re-sign with the Clippers. If taking a swing like this is what it's going to take to convince LeBron James to stay in town, then they might as well just go in a whole new direction anyway, because going through with this puts them in a very similar spot to the Phoenix Suns, who went all in on a big three last year, ignoring depth pieces and role players, and as a result they got swept in the first round of the playoffs this year. The days of big threes are coming to an end, because under the new CBA, it's no longer viable to put them together and still have enough to bring in competent role players to round out the roster, so for the sake of both teams involved here, they should stay away from this idea. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about these proposed trades. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.